But I think the main things is at the end of the day, volleyball is volleyball. It's in the same 9x9 court, and the rules are the same. So we is that on the back of your shirt?
Yeah, it's on the back of the shirt.
You did. A little free shout out for you. And it doesn't matter who's on the other side of the net. You need to still execute to the best of your ability if you want a chance to win.
That's right, Brett Walsh. You got to execute to the best of your ability if you want a chance to win. That's what we do here on the 9x9, the 81 square meters, the best volleyball coverage on the internet. My name is Rob St. Clair, live from Chicago. That is Everett Delorme, live from Toronto. Today is Tuesday, May 2nd. This is episode 66. And boy, do we have some interesting stuff going on, Everett. Not only is it a crazy time in playoff volleyball in Europe, we're starting to hand out some legitimate season-long hardware, but we had an even crazier story that just broke earlier today.
Yeah, I mean, crazy times. It feels a little weird, though, Rob. Like, I wake up every day, I look at today's matches on the Discord. Big shout out to the Volleyball Source Discord. And there's like 1 or 2 matches a day, right? All of a sudden, it's just like there's only a few matches going on that matter. But just because there's only a few, that means that the ones that are going on are absolutely massive. But you're right. Before we get to the volleyball that's been going on, there has been some massive news from Brazil. I think everyone will remember Wallace's little mishap earlier this year. But Rob, you've broken it down pretty good here in our show notes. So I'm just going to let you take it away. Because this could have we'll discuss that afterwards, but could have massive implications in the world of international volleyball, both this year and for a little while.
Yes, it could. So like Everett said, we first heard about this little Wallace situation back in, I think, late January, early February. And we brought it up on the show, but now it's blown up for several reasons. And then the other thing that's important to point out before we really dig into this is that all of this is really just breaking today. And there's still a lot of the implications and the repercussions of this towards like the global volleyball world that we don't really know yet. We don't exactly know what all the consequences of this are going to be, but I'll go through what we know right now. So it started back on January 31st when Wallace, everyone's familiar with Wallace. He won an Olympic gold medal for Brazil. He's the captain right now of Sada Cruzeiro, clearly the best, most storied Brazilian club of all time. Wallace was suspended indefinitely by Sada Cruzeiro, by his team, on January 31st. And what he did to earn that suspension was that he posted on his Instagram story messages suggesting that the Brazilian president should be brought to harm, in particular, that the Brazilian president should hypothetically be shot. And then shortly after, he posted photos of weapons that were implied to be used for said shooting, which you obviously cannot do. If you're an Olympic caliber athlete, you can't incite violence upon anybody, especially not the president of your country. So Wallace accepted that suspension that was imposed by his club, and then he issued a video apology on Instagram on January 31st. So that was it for them at that point, and Sada Cruzeiro was going to let it blow over and lift the suspension when the club chose to. However, a few weeks later, on February 25th, the Brazilian Olympic Committee, which is the COB that you see there on the screen, they govern all international sports in Brazil. They suspended Wallace from domestic competition in the Brazilian SuperLega for 90 days. And the Brazilian Olympic Committee can do that because they govern the Brazilian Volleyball Federation. The Brazilian Volleyball Federation governs the domestic league and all the clubs and all the athletes that play there. So the Brazilian Olympic Committee is the top dog at all things Olympic sports related in Brazil. And so they imposed their own suspension on Wallace that started from January 31st and lasted for 90 days. And that suspension would have lapsed, I think, literally today, either today or yesterday, like just barely after the championship match was scheduled for the season. So that suspension was brought down by the Brazilian Olympic Committee. At some point after that, the Brazilian Volleyball Confederation, which is the CBV, hired an unauthorized independent arbitrator to rule on an appeal that the CBV submitted of the COB's suspension. So this happens in sports. When a suspension is levied, you have a chance to appeal it. So the COB suspended Wallace. The CBV, which is the volleyball governing body in Brazil, wanted to appeal that suspension. But instead of appealing that directly with the Brazilian Olympic Committee, they hired an unauthorized independent third party, in significant air quotes, we'll get to that later, they hired a third-party independent arbitrator to hear this appeal. And that independent arbitrator heard the appeal, and they ruled that they thought that Wallace should be released from his suspension. So that was on April 12th when that quote-unquote ruling was released. So this independent arbitrator said, oh, no, everything's fine here. The Brazilian Olympic Committee suspension doesn't apply, and Wallace is cleared to go back to playing. So that was what the CBV, Sada Cruzeiro, and Wallace, they accepted that ruling from the independent arbitrator. So fast forward to this past weekend, April 30th. This was, I think, Sunday. Sada Cruzeiro played in the championship match in the SuperLega. It's just one single match, not a series. And Wallace didn't start the match, but he came off the bench in all 3 sets, including scoring the championship-winning kill in the 3rd set. Sada Cruzeiro won the match 3-0. They won yet another Brazilian League title. They win it every single year, and they didn't really need Wallace to win this tournament per se, but he did score the championship-winning kill. And in doing so, by Wallace setting foot on the court, well, even dressing, warming up, like appearing in the match, but setting foot on the court, he violated the COB's suspension, because the only people that accepted a ruling that's saying, oh, no, that suspension doesn't apply, Wallace is good to go. The Brazilian Volleyball Federation accepted that. Sada Cruzeiro, the club, and Wallace, the athlete, accepted the ruling of an independent arbitrator that was never greenlit or agreed to by the COB, which actually levied the suspension. So that's the events, and a statement came out today. Everett, and you want to jump in, or any questions about the events so far?
No, I'm pretty clear as of right now. It sounds to me like, I mean, yeah, you can just keep it going at this point, because this is we'll talk about it in a bit, but this is not surprising behavior to me from the Brazilian Volleyball Federation whatsoever.
Yeah, that's, and we'll certainly get to that. So Sada Cruzeiro wins the championship this past weekend. Wallace plays. In doing so, he violates his suspension from the Brazilian Olympic Committee. And today, the ethics committee of the Brazilian Olympic Committee issues a statement. And they issued this long statement in Portuguese that I spent like hours today translating through and trying to understand the legalese also in like Google Translate form. So that was certainly an adventure. But what it comes down to is that the COB, the governing body for all Olympic sports in Brazil, condemned all the actions of the CBV, of Sada Cruzeiro, and of Wallace himself. They pointed out that this independent arbitrator that the CBV hired to hear this appeal should never be hearing any appeal. Their verdict does not matter at all. And the reason why is that the COB pointed out massive conflicts of interest in who this independent arbitrator was. It turns out that Wallace's independent lawyer, the lawyer that represents him, is also the lawyer that founded and sits on the CBV's ethics board, and sits on the board, or sits like on the sports lawyer council of this independent arbitrator. So like clearly that's a gigantic conflict of interest. I don't understand where exactly the money is being handed off here to make this so shady, and to put the interests of just one athlete above the suspension from literally the Brazilian Olympic Committee. But that's what the COB statement pointed out today. And they also outlined the following punishments. So here's what I've been able to figure out. These are the punishments recommended by the ethics committee to the entire Brazilian Olympic Committee. One is that Wallace is suspended. He was already suspended for 90 days from domestic competition and a year from the national team. Both of those suspensions have been extended to 5 years. So, and if you follow volleyball, you've known Wallace. Like, he retired from the national team last year. They brought him back to play the World Championship because Alan Souza got hurt, and Wallace retired from the national team again. So this is just very, very much confirming that Wallace will never play on the national team again.
Ever again.
Ever. So that's a minor punishment. A major one, though, is that the Brazilian Olympic Committee has been ordered to suspend any and all financial transfers and material assistance to the CBV for 6 months. And by extension of that, all government financial assistance from the Ministry of Sport to anything related to Brazilian volleyball has been suspended for 6 months. So what that means, it doesn't mean that the Brazilian Volleyball Federation can't operate. It doesn't mean that they can't play international events. It doesn't even mean that they can't host international events. What it means is that they will get no money from any outside source from the government for 6 months. That is a massive deal. And additionally, the ethics committee strongly recommended, and I don't know how much power they have to make this reality, but they recommended that the Banco do Brasil, like the big bank in Brazil that is the primary private sponsor of the CBV, and all other private sponsors, the COB strongly recommended that those people also stop their financial contributions to Brazilian volleyball also for 6 months. So this is looking like 6 months of the Brazilian Volleyball Federation scraping the bottom of the barrel for money just to operate. And that is massively significant.
Yeah, I mean, to be perfectly honest, Rob, I'm really not all that surprised. I mean, let's be honest. Back in 2014, there was massive fraud allegations coming on Ari Graça from his time as the president of the Brazilian Federation, that he was basically funding Banco do Brasil's sponsorship money into his own pockets. Those allegations were still ongoing, and he was still being looked at up until 2021, and still, I mean, he's still at the head of the FIVB while being under investigation for fraud. So it's just kind of par for the course to me for Brazil, and how they operate things. The fact that they thought that an independent arbitrator could rule this thing and think that it would be valid is absolutely mind-boggling. And it just seems like they thought it was gonna be like, oh, he's a few days away. He's a few. Come on, he's just a few days away. Why not just let him play? He barely even played. He barely even touched the court. Just not that big of a deal. But ultimately, I think that the financial implications for this could be massive. I'm not entirely sure how the CBV works all in all, but I know that if Volleyball Canada, for example, was to lose the government funding that they have, that it would shutter.
Game over.
It would be absolutely game over. Now, I think the CBV is probably a little bit more business savvy than Volleyball Canada is, and considering they have major sponsors like Banco do Brasil to kind of fund some of those things, it's going to be they might be in a better standing, but it's going to be very interesting to see moving forward how this affects not only men's volleyball, women's volleyball, beach volleyball, but just Brazilian volleyball as a whole, right? Which has been on, unsteady grounds, I would say, for a little bit now, just due to some political situations. But furthermore, like if you look like that 1 year suspension for Wallace was actually pretty big. When you add the fact that Leal won't be playing for this summer either for the national team, he might be looking at the Olympic qualifiers. What is Brazil going to look like this season at the VNL? What are they going to look like at the Olympic qualifiers? Do they have the money to be able to get some of these places? Is this going to affect, is the bad press like this, is that going to affect Banco do Brasil to pull out as a sponsor? Are they going to be able to get more sponsors? I think in the next few days, the next coming weeks is going to be very, very interesting, especially as we get closer to the VNL. Brazil is not hosting anything for VNL this year, are they?
They are. They have the second week of women's VNL and one of the men's pools of Olympic qualifiers. So and funny enough, they just literally had over the weekend a big beach event, like a big beach volleyball world event down there before all this broke. But they're going to have. I'm not even sure if they're going to be able to host those two events. And then independently from that, I'm not sure if either Brazilian national team is going to be able to participate in those events. That doesn't even consider how much it's going to hurt the juniors game and the beach game. I think those are probably going to be the first things to get chopped off, as the CBV is likely going to have to just scrape whatever cash reserves their business has just to operate. The juniors, international juniors travel and international beach travel are going to be the first things to get chopped off. And I have no idea what this is going to look like. And we have a couple Brazilians in the Discord, I know, and we're really going to need them to help us out the next couple of days as more of this comes out, because it just came out today. But I agree with you. This could be catastrophic for one of the great volleyball countries that we've relied upon in the world for decades, that you put in the S tier of volleyball countries in the video you did recently, and well deserved. Obviously this isn't the first and won't be the last time that a Brazilian sporting organization did something unethical, but their volleyball culture in that country is tremendous. And all of their teams are contenders at every level, men's, women's, beach, everything. This is going to be a huge, huge deal.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a few people in the chat, of course, Ronnie saying that the CBV has something like 29 million real in bank, and they're going to need at least 6 million for the national teams this year. So I think if anyone could withstand, a few months of this, I think it might be Brazil. I think traveling to events and stuff like that it should be okay, but for me it's the hosting. Are they going to be able to host this kind of stuff? And if that's the case, like, they're going to need some more sponsors, but ultimately this is going to be massive. I don't really see them. It would seem incredible to me just to have some external sanctions being brought on upon them from like the IOC or something like that, considering the IOC has barely even sanctioned Russia, and this is a very internal matter. So yeah, ultimately I think that this is probably the extent that we're going to see from it, but there is a lot of questions moving forward to when is that funding going to restart for the CBV.
Yeah, so Sada Cruzeiro today declined to put out any sort of comment or statement on all this. The CBV kind of put up a blanket generic statement like, we're looking into this, we're going to fight back against it as best we can, but that's really all that we've seen. So nothing from the FIVB, nothing from
I wouldn't expect there to be.
No, me neither. You're right. This is an internal matter, and that's kind of what I wanted to bring up before we wrap this up is just how stupid this is. This is so stupid. This is so stupid. First of all, this is not about what Wallace did. What Wallace did, like implying that you should shoot the president of your country, is completely insane and unacceptable, but that's not what this is about. This is about going behind the back of your Olympic committee in your country to try and work around in a slimy way, hiring a clearly biased independent, not independent, but quote unquote independent arbitrator to hear an appeal just to get one player back for one match where you didn't even need him. Sada Cruzeiro didn't need Wallace to win the SuperLega this year. They were the best team in Brazil by far. They always are. They didn't need him. And they didn't even start him. Like if you're gonna play the guy and bring on all this entire firestorm on your entire country, at least like start him, like set him every ball and see what he can get you. They barely even played the guy.
What do you think? They're just going to check the starting lines and be like, oh, no, he didn't start. Okay, we're good.
He didn't start. Yeah, nobody's going to watch the game. Nobody's going to notice that he came in off the bench. It's crazy that they were willing to do all of this crap for one player to play a little bit of one match. And I respect the Brazilian Olympic Committee for just destroying Brazilian volleyball for this because of how stupid it is. You gained nothing from this. You lose potentially everything from this, and it's an important precedent to set that you cannot attempt to undermine your national Olympic committee and do stupid things like this. You cannot do that, and I respect this ruling. I agree with it. I have no idea what Wallace and Sada Cruzeiro were thinking. I have no idea why this is even done. Why are we even talking about this? It's insane.
Yeah, I don't know. It's absolutely ridiculous, but hey, the only people who are going to suffer now is Brazilian volleyball. So I guess that's a chance for the rest of the world to do. I wouldn't even say catching up because they haven't been that dominant over the past few years. This isn't the mid 2000s where they were winning everything left, right, and center. But yeah, let's move on from this, Rob. We've probably spent a little too much time to some real volleyball. Let's start over in Turkey, where, you know what? This year has been so interesting for the best teams in the world. On the men's side, Perugia just completely imploding. And it's like Perugia and VakifBank did a complete 180, right? Perugia started the season very, very good. VakifBank has been struggling since the beginning, but recently they have been red hot, and that has continued by absolutely dominating Fenerbahce in the finals of the Turkish Cup over the weekend. A big 3-0 win. Like, it really wasn't even close out there in favor of VakifBank. Once again, we are seeing Egonu and Gabi being featured equally in the offense. Both of them are fantastic. Gabi hitting over 60%, Egonu hitting over 50%, and VakifBank is back in the driver's seat in Turkey and in Europe.
Yes, they are. I love how you said how opposite this season has been for them compared to Perugia. I mean, VakifBank, they got smoked by Fenerbahce in the Super Cup the start of the year. They didn't really show up all that well at the Club World Championship, and now here the Turkish Cup, which I mean, even though it was pushed back by a month, they've completely turned it around. So they get some hardware here. Obviously, they're going to play for a Champions League final, and they'll start the semifinal series in the Sultanlar Ligi here this week. But this has been a ridiculous turnaround, and it's turned around on a dime. It was that second leg of that Champions League semifinal where VakifBank beat Fenerbahce on the road and in a golden set. And ever since then, they've been the VakifBank that we saw win the Infinity Gauntlet last year. It's really been fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look, like as we said after they won that second leg, they must have had an internal team meeting, because once again, it's still pretty lopsided. 47 sets to Agonu, 25 for Gabby, but Gabby 15 points. She went 15 for 25. She's getting the bulk of serve receive and absolutely killing for it. There's no doubt in my mind who the leader of this team right now, and that's Gabby Guimarães. No doubt about it. She's leading this team to the promised land. And you know what? Like, the numbers on the other side of the net for Fenerbahce, just not great offensively. Both Fedorovtseva and Anna Cristina hitting only 39%, both going 9 for 23. Melissa Vargas is all right, going 14 for 30. But man, VakifBank just turning things around so nicely, and I cannot wait, because they've got a whole series coming up in the semifinals. So that's just going to be absolute. Just add more wood to that fire. Let's go, because these two teams have a tale of two seasons. The early season where Fenerbahce dominated, and now, as you said, it turned on a dime after that second leg, and now it's all been VakifBank.
And then sleeping in the background is Zaja Basha, who casually went undefeated in the regular season, and they're playing a Champions League final as well. And like they've got a much easier, relatively easier semifinal matchup in THY. But with Fenerbahce, we talked about it as they were storming through the Champions League and then hit that brick wall of VakifBank at the last minute. It was all about their unique, almost men's volleyball-like play style, where they were just ripping balls from the service line. They were destroying people in the serve and pass battle. They were ripping high balls. Their offense was very simple, but they were out physically dominating people. And the first number I look at on a score sheet when I look at a Fenerbahce game is serving, and number of aces in particular. 3 aces in 3 sets and only 6 errors, which is not bad. But VakifBank, now having seen Fenerbahce so many times, getting so many reps against a serving team of that caliber. And it's not like Fedorovtseva and Vargas and occasionally, who else can apply pressure on that team? Anna Cristina occasionally, but it's mostly Fedorovtseva and Vargas, at least in my head. They've seen serves from those players so many times by now that what I think VakifBank's doing a great job of is not getting aced. They're just putting the ball up in the middle of the court. They can survive putting the ball up in the middle of the court because you have Paola Egonu, who has a case for being the best player in the world, and you have Gabi, who will never make a mental error in a high ball situation. I also want to give Karabayam a credit for really stabilizing the second outside position for VakifBank. But going into this series, as we can now look at the semifinals here that start, I think, tomorrow. How can you look at the recent history and think that Fenerbahce has a chance to get past VakifBank here? I personally don't.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting right now. All of the momentum is on VakifBank. I mean, they've won 6 straight sets against Fenerbahce.
7 if you count that golden set.
7 if you want. Yeah, you're absolutely right. 7 if you count that golden set, right? So this to me is there's 2 things. First of all, VakifBank is putting on their championships hats, right? Because even with the addition of Egonu, like, she's a champion as well, right? She's won the Champions League. She knows how to get it done. She's won the Lega Volleyball Femminile before. They know how to do it in crunch time. But also for Kai coming into the chat, Fenerbahce is crumbling, and Erdem has publicly criticized head coach Terzic on national television. So you can tell that inner turmoil on Fenerbahce is really starting to eat them up right at the worst time, just as VakifBank is coming closer together. So that is going to be really interesting, because especially like let's remember the only one of the only Zaja Basha only has 2 losses this season. One in the World Club Championship, and the other one is to Fenerbahce in the quarterfinals earlier in March in this Turkish Cup, right? So you said that they're kind of sleeping and going on through. There was a little while there where I thought, hey, Fenerbahce might be that team. They might be them to be able to take down Exarchia, but that's not the case as it's looking right now, as it looks like they're crumbling. And to me, this is almost very much like the Perugia situation, where you just have that inner turmoil on a team full of stars that just can't get together.
Yep. And so Fenerbahce has the leadership in Ada Erdem, but apparently it's not going well with the coaching staff. Meanwhile, it does look to me like VakifBank, relying upon Gabi as such an incredible leader. It is maybe the first time I'll ever compliment Giovanni Guidetti on taking a step back just a little bit and letting Gabi be the emotional voice and just the steadying presence in timeouts and such. We all see Guidetti so animated. We've got that emoji of him in the Discord just going like this, as Italian and loud and angry as it gets. But I even see him taking his foot off the gas a little bit. That's a team that has a defined leader and that trusts Gabi Guimarães, who has been there before. And I trust her as well. I think both this Sultanlar Ligi playoff and the Champions League final are VakifBank's to lose, because nobody else has a player like Gabi.
Yeah. Oof. I don't know. I think Boskovic is emotionally up there with Gabi for sure. And Boskovic has gotten the job done at a number of occasions. So that, to me, that matchup between those two, definitely in the Champions League finals, we can't say anything about the Sultanlar Ligi just yet, because you've got the semifinal matchups this year. Game 1 of that series going down tomorrow. Game 2 going down Friday. I do think that what channel is it usually on?
It's on
TRT
YouTube,
Sport,
at least usually, yeah.
TRT Sport, yeah. I think you can actually find that on YouTube. So we're gonna look into that for you guys.
Yeah,
but
I watched the Halkbank game today on YouTube for free. So hopefully you can do the same for the women's.
Awesome. Yeah, so that is going to be very, very interesting, because Fenerbahce has to do something to figure out VakifBank at this point. And I'm not sure they can. I'm not sure they can. They may win one game, but I definitely see VakifBank winning this series, no doubt about it.
Yeah, it's going to have to be from the service line for Fenerbahce. They're going to have to conjure that back up that we saw for a month or so there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Rob, from one women's playoffs to another, let's head over to Italy, where we have one team who has made the finals. Everyone knew who it was. Conegliano getting it done all the way to the finals, taking down Novara. Novara was able to win a set, at least in the last game, but that's about it. This team has been absolutely dominant throughout this season. Hawk with 17 in the last match. Catherine Plummer with 23. That might be one of the best matches all year for Catherine Plummer out there. Karakurt just with 20, but then no one else. Like, the next highest scorer for Novara in this one was Bossetti with just 10 points. So Conegliano just absolutely dominant. Are we surprised whatsoever that they're in the final?
Nope. Not even a little bit. I mean, yeah, Karakurt 20, Bossetti 10. I'm talking about match 2 where Conegliano won 3-1 on the road. Yeah, I don't really have that much to say about this series. It wasn't that close. It wasn't that competitive. The Novara outside hitter position wasn't very good. They needed more out of either Mackenzie Adams. Kenya Carcases barely played. She went like 4 for 11 in a set and a half. The Novara middles were good, but the Conegliano middles were just as good. That was like really the only advantage that I saw for Novara in my head. And then the first match was even less close, like 3-dong, not close at all. 18, 22, 20, like then 26, 24. We've known for a month that at least a month that Conegliano was going to be in the final. They had a great draw. They matched up extremely well against anyone on their side of the bracket. And yeah, sure enough, here they are. I don't really have that much more to say about this series.
No, me neither. Like, this is pretty much to be expected. And now it's just about a fine. I mean, it's also expected to, considering that Karakurt and the club president Gian Vittorio Leonard had a big argument right outside of the change room right after match 1. So that was right in front of the media room too. So that,
Figure it out, volleyball. Why are we doing this all the time?
seriously,
Like in ways that are so
volleyball.
public? Like,
Like
come on.
it's
It's crazy.
It's just such an amateur sport in so many
It
ways.
really
And it
is.
sucks
dude.
because we love it, but we just operate like, I remember a good friend of ours who's going to remain nameless, but she was commentating during the bubble during VNL, and she comes back and she goes, I've been to junior hockey games in Canada, which is under 20, like teenagers, where they have way more assets and way more help for the media than they do for the VNL. And I think that just kind of sums up volleyball all in all. So yeah, Conegliano moving on to the finals. It's going to take a gargantuan effort from either the two teams in the other semifinals to take them down. So let's move over to there, because leg one went to Scandicci, and that to me was kind of on script. This is a team that on paper is very, very good. They're very, very solid. They have one of the best players, or at least at one time, one of the best players in the world in Zhu Ting. Elena Pietrini is fantastic. Antropova is one of the up-and-coming stars, I think, in the world of volleyball. So a great match all in all by Scandicci in match number one. And to be honest, I was expecting them to take it 2-0, but
I kind of was too.
Man, match number 2, Vero Volley Malonza comes back with authority. 17 team blocks, 7 for Raffaella Foley, just absolutely out there demolishing. Like, Jordan Thompson added 18 points. It was just, you had 5 different players hitting double digits in points in this one. Larson with 13, Stesiak with 11, Silo with 11, Thompson with 18, Foley once again with 7 blocks with 11. Malonza just absolutely came alive, and for at least one game this season, they were able to get all of their stars aligned to get this win.
And how about getting double-digit points from both your opposites? How insane is that? I don't know if I've really ever seen that. Like, Stesiak started the third set, appeared in sets 1 and 2, went 10 for 21, 11 points, and Thompson was the horse otherwise. It's just for once, the weird Malonza method of just throwing random combinations out there with everybody having a really short leash. For once, it kind of worked. And I'm not convinced that that's going to work again in a do or die match, but that's kind of what has made this series fun. Both these teams are streaky. Both these teams have high ceilings. Both these teams have massive inconsistent tendencies as well. I mean, in that first match, going back to match 1, you see those set scores 25-12, 25-13. Like, Malonza looked like an embarrassment for 2 sets there, and then they somehow completely turned it around. They were leading significantly in the fourth before absolutely choking it away. I mean, you get 30 out of Antropova for Scandicci in a match, and then she kind of lays an egg in the second game. Like, that's the sort of wild, inconsistent play that I'm talking about for teams that were clearly in the elite echelons in all of Europe this regular season, and it's made this series really fun. I mean, well, Antropova wasn't bad in game 2. She did get blocked 9 times, still 26 points. But this series is cool. It's fun. Can any of these teams sustain success to beat Conegliano in the next round? No. No way.
No, I don't think so. But we also said that about Perugia earlier in the season. At this point, there's absolutely no bets about what and anything can happen, right? If you had asked me a few weeks ago if Perugia was going to lose to Milano, hell no. And Perugia just lost to Padova over the weekend. Okay, so
yeah,
we're not making any more of these calls at this point. But yeah, the chat is coming up and saying Scandicci middle struggles are real, and they are real, man.
Yeah, Haley Washington negative efficiency. Ouch.
Yeah, not great
That's
at
bad
all.
for a middle, man. That's really bad.
Yeah.
And then Yvonne Bellien, 0 efficiency, and they couldn't decide what they wanted to do at setter. They were handcuffed by the foreigner limit. Well, one of the things that sucks about Scandicci is, like, the only way they've been able to give themselves an outlet for the foreigner limit is to not play the best libero on the planet in Brenda Castillo, and that is a bummer. It is a bummer not getting to watch her in this series.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to find a way to get her on. But once again, it's just teams that just stock up on foreigners, and like, Italy's good. You're going to need to find some better Italian talent. But yeah, game 3 is going to be going on tomorrow. Obviously, you can check that out over on volleyballworld.tv. TV or on is it on Ray Sport if you're in
I don't know.
Yeah, me neither.
Not my chair, not my problem, as they say. That if you're in Italy, you know where to watch it. But yeah, big one tomorrow, 2:30 Eastern. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be a good one for sure.
It's like sloppy and fun and weird is a series that these two have produced. It could be streaky. You could see a team like put up 12 points in a set and then come back to win the match. Like anything's possible. So looking forward to that one. Do you want to shift over to the Italian men's side? We've got the finals to talk about. How cool
Yeah,
is that?
absolutely. Game 1 of the finals went down yesterday at Trento, and this one until like the second half of the fourth set was truly just a back and forth match.
Absolutely.
And it was a really fun match to watch. But ultimately at the end of the day, Trento ran away with it in the fourth set. In a big one you see there, and like they were close up until late. But Rob, what was your initial thoughts watching this match?
So this match was weird, and I'm glad that we're going to see a couple more of them, because honestly, my impression of it was that the level wasn't all that high collectively. It was strange. Trentino passed the ball extremely well, 33% perfect, 67% positive, but their offense just didn't quite look that good. There was just something missing about it that I couldn't quite put my finger on. Part of it could be that Srećko Lisinac clearly wasn't 100%. He did not look like himself. He left the match in the second set, but he's not like a fundamental part of their offense. Like he's not Robert Landy Simone. Still, something about the wing production it just didn't look quite right to me. And the numbers were okay. Like Micheletto was good, 15 for 25. Kaziski was fine, 18 for 35. Lavia was not great, 9 for 25. I thought Lube did a pretty good job on defense, but Lube's level wasn't overwhelmingly high either. They collapsed a little bit in some moments late in sets. They made some bad unforced errors at bad times, and while they played defense pretty well, I thought their serving was terrible. So I'm glad that we're going to see these teams play each other again, because there are going to be a lot of adjustments that are made, and just a lot of moving parts as Lorenzetti and Blengini, the coaches, kind of go at one another, which certainly isn't the first time those two have coached against one another. So I'm excited to see another game's worth of this series. I think it's Thursday, game 2, if I'm not mistaken. And I hope that it's a little bit more like polished of a level for the finals in the best league in the world. But that doesn't mean it wasn't entertaining, because like you said, this was an absolute back and forth battle, extremely thin margins until the end of the fourth set. But I just wish the level was a little bit higher.
I'm going to push back a little bit on Trentino's offense wasn't being that fantastic, because there's efficiency. It was a 404. Like they were actually fairly efficient compared to Lube, who was a 324. They weren't running anything like stupendous, but they were just pretty efficient, right? They didn't make very many errors, and they scored when they needed to. For me, there's a few things that I noticed from this match. First and foremost, if you let Trentino take the lead, it's really, really hard to take it away from them. The two biggest comebacks that Civitanova had was the comeback in the first set that Trentino ended up fighting off to take the match, and then the comeback in the second set that Trentino was able to push back. But they just play. It's so hard to put them in bad situations, and it's so hard it's so rare to see them misplay a situation. Like those in-between balls where, it's a tip. Their systems make it so that they always know what the next play is going to be. They always know who's up next, if you will. They do a really, really good job. The only set that they lost, which was set number 2, was the only set that they were really missing serves after 20. Like they really bear down and push hard after 22. So to me, especially, I kind of agree. Watching the match originally from the broadcast, you see quite a bit of it did seem kind of sloppy, but it was really just in my eyes, a lot of the times Trentino just managing the situation and bettering the ball consistently. Whereas, like Lube Civitanova, especially in that third set, they had 3-point leads twice, and then had another decent lead up 2018 late into that third set, and that's the one that Trentino came back to get. So they just have these lapses of concentration and lapses of their mental game where they're making bad errors. There's just poor communication on the court. They don't make critical digs. And it was those kind of in-between points where you could see where, and like on the other side, Trentino gets down by 3 and they focus in. Their blocking gets better. Their defense get better. They force Trentino or Lube to make an error offensively. So for me, it was a really, really good game by Trento when they weren't necessarily playing their best, but they were able to manage their emotions quite a bit and push through. But Lube is going to need to answer quite better. They really need to serve much tougher. Like they're not playing Milano anymore. And that's the big thing. Like they're playing Milano plus, right? Like I see there's a lot of similarities between the way that Milano play to the way that Trentino play in terms of how they use everyone, how they work together as a team. But Trentino just executes at a much, much higher level. And I don't know, like Lube is going to have to put a lot of pressure offensively on them. Like some of the stuff that DeCecco is doing with Chinese and the way that Nikolov is scoring, that 4-4 shot is absolutely disgusting. But then Trentino will go back. They'll get a good go get a serve receive, and Micheletto will hit a nice high off hands. Kaczynski will challenge the block, and they just go back to business, right? And it's
to me, Trentino, I like a lot of what you said there. A lot of that makes sense. Like Trentino making smart choices, not making mental mistakes, and kind of managing weird scrap and making the most out of it. That reminds me of the Italian national team and the way that they won the world championship last year, is that they didn't play the best volleyball the world has ever seen, but they brought teams down to their level and beat them at what they were good at. I think Trentino is a little bit similar to that, but it doesn't mean that they're not beatable, because here's a question for you. Is there a clear answer to this? I don't think there is. Who's the best player in this series?
I agree that I don't think there is a clear answer to this.
Who's
because
like for either team, who's the guy?
I mean, for me, it's clear that the guy and the linchpin for Lube is there's 2 players. First of all, there's Ivan Zaitsev. Because they're targeting him quite a bit on serve receive, and he's the guy that's really having to get them out of some tough situations, especially in this one. Nikolov wasn't great offensively. He was making a few errors, and we saw when Zaitsev started making errors in that late 4th set and he started losing himself mentally, that's when the rest of Lube lost themselves, right? When Zaitsev kind of unraveled a bit, there was a big play to make things, I think it was like 18-15 or 17-15 for Trentino, where there was like an open net for Zaitsev on the right side. Micheletto closed him real quick, got a soft block, and then turned around and got the kill. And you could see Zaitsev on the net just hold it, and you could see that's the moment he broke in the match.
When Ivan Zaitsev pulls the net down in frustration after a point, you know you're in trouble.
So to me, there's 2 linchpins for Lube Civitanova, and that has to be Ivan Zaitsev and, of course, Luciano DeCecco, right? DeCecco has been there before. Yeah. He's won 3 straight Scudettos.
At least 2, I think the one in 2019
you're
was
right.
Bruno.
He's won 2 straight Scudettos. He knows how to get the job done. He's won an Olympic bronze. But everywhere else, there's just those question marks. Yant is up and down, especially in serve receive. Like he's bad in serve receive, and you could kind of see a few times too where there's maybe a little bit of friction between Zaitsev and Yant in after serve receive. Like there was
there's just as much friction though between Micheletto and Lorenzano on the Trentino side. I can count so many times this year where Micheletto's just berating his young libero in timeout.
I'll have to watch that some more, because I know we were talking about it in the Discord, but I'll have to watch those interactions a little bit more. But I just wonder if that's just the way, like, I think we've all played with players before, or have had, played on teams where there's 2 players who love each other and they just go at each other in that way. So I'm gonna have to watch those interactions between Micheletto and Lorenzano a little bit more. But like, there's clear ones. Like there was one in the 3rd set. Late in the 3rd set where it was clearly like it was right at Yant's right shoulder. He should have just stepped in. It was a far step for Zaitsev. Sure, Zaitsev is the back row player there, But also let's understand that Zaitsev's not a natural serve receiver. He's just been doing it as of late. And Zaitsev gets aces. Yant is kind of just standing there watching it. And there's just no interaction at the end. There's no like my bad by Yant. Yant just kind of stands over him as Zaitsev is cleaning the floor. And it's those little interactions that tell me that there's just not that unison on the Lube side. I'm gonna watch, now that you mentioned that, I am gonna watch those interactions between Lorenzano and Micheletto a little bit more. But at the end of the day, you know what? The scrutiny goes on the team that lost, and those types of situations always get swept under the rug after a win.
Match 2 goes back to Civitanova on Thursday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. You would have to assume that's kind of a must-win for Lube. Down 2-0 in the Scudetto final is not a good place to be. So I'm curious to see it. I do think that there are going to be some moving parts. We've already seen the Lube block adjust. They've been putting Luciano DeCecco on the left against Matej Kaziski, which is not something I thought that I would see. And it actually hasn't been the worst decision. It's kind of worked out a little bit. So stuff like that. That's why I like series at this high of a level, because there's so much thinking going on. There's so much matchup understanding and adjustment. And I think that match 2 might look completely different than match 1.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I fully agree as well that it's a must win for Lube. As I said before, it's so hard to play from behind against this Trentino team. They're just so mentally tough.
Yeah.
They're so mentally strong. They don't make a lot of errors. And to me, like you said, who's the best player on Trentino in and day out? Like, ultimately, I think you have to give it to Kaczynski. Like, he's been so fantastic. He's been scoring the most points, but every part of that team is important. And I don't know if there's one that's less important than the other one. Even the way that Tahir came in, like he was big time. I was kind of questioning Lube early on, because right after he was subbed in, there's a few points where you had both the left side and it was Anzani jump with Tahir, and he hadn't even been set yet. And I was like, man, you've got a front row setter. You need to release and get a 2-man block over there on
Why
Micheletto
do
or
so
Lavia.
many elite middles make that exact mistake? And I was thankful to have Vital Heinen on the call to point out how stupid that was, and because he's not shy about pointing out when things are stupid. That was dumb. Anzani, you're a world champion caliber middle. You've been here. You should know better. And he was doing the same thing in the Milano series, jumping on Matteo Piano when he was the least threatening part of the Milano offense. Like, figure it out, middles. We should know better than this.
I mean, that's something that, like, I used to work with like my college team middles. And trust me, the CCAA or the OCAA is nowhere near the like SuperLega volley. So yeah, it was just questionable, but I'm going to be very interested to see what Lube brings to the table. I think Zaitsev needs to bring it up from the baseline. Nikolov wasn't great from the baseline early on. And early on, you could tell, like, after 6 points in this match, Trentino had 2 aces. Zaitsev had one of them, but Lube had 2 errors. And it just kind of continued on. Also, blocking wise, Trentino with 10 blocks was
better. Yeah,
way better. You could tell that they block as a unit.
How good is Marco Petrashinin, man? How good is that guy?
So good. And the fact that they're even able to bring in Tahir as well is just unreal as well. So big ups to Trentino. I honestly expect them to take this series 3-1 now.
Yeah, that was my pick on the last show, and I'll stand by.
I remember. I think I called it in 5, but you're right.
Yeah, well, I'm excited for Thursday. Going to be a good one. Speaking of the finals, let's move on to some of the other leagues. We're starting to get a bunch of them into the finals. One huge one is the PlusLiga. I'm very, very excited about this final, which starts tomorrow between Zaksa and Jastrzębski, and I'm excited about this for a lot of reasons. One is because we've seen it a bunch the last 2 years. This has been quite the saga the last couple of years, and it's a preview of the Champions League final. So those two teams are going to go into the Champions League final ready to go for one another. There will not need to be any like new study being done. They already know each other extremely well. They could play that final right now, and the level will be super high. So we talked about it on last week's show. Both of them, both Zaksa and Jastrzębski, were up 2-0 in their respective semifinals. We expected them to get those series done. Both of them did. Zaksa beat Resovia in 5, actually a really good match at home on Wednesday. And Jastrzębski beat Zawiercie in a sweep, no problem. So here we are. And we also had the third place series that started today. Zavierce beat Resovia in 5 with Champions League spot on the line. So that is what it is. But match 1 of the final is tomorrow. Everett, do you agree with me that that we're on Team Zaxa?
Oh yeah,
at this
absolutely.
point?
Both because like just watching Zaxa and their rise over the past few years has been so much fun to watch. They've got a couple of North American boys who have been absolutely fantastic. But my question to you, Rob, is Bartosz Bednorz one of the best players in the world right now, right in this moment?
I think he's the hottest player in the world right now. He's done like more often than any other player since he joined Zaxa. So let's call it February. No other player since then has put up more stat lines like 20 for 26 or like things along those lines, like otherworldly, like ridiculous efficiency numbers, like matches where he is downright unstoppable in doing everything, pipe, left side in system, serving, like the whole thing. I think that he's the hottest player in volleyball. Is he the best? Maybe. We could certainly have that debate too. But Bednorz is steaming hot. And it was good that Zaxa got that semifinal series done in 3 matches. It was a 3-0 in the series over Resovia, because it looked to me like in that match, that third match on Wednesday, that Bednorz was playing around with his knee a little bit. He had to go to the bench for maybe half a set to get his knee looked at, which is not a good sign. But he did come back into the match, and he basically won the 5th set single-handedly from the service line. So he is my pick for the hottest player in the world right now, and might be Zaxa's most important player. And think about how much their season has turned around since bringing him in.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think that this is actually technically his 2nd season, right? Because we already played in China. I don't think he won the championship there. Maybe he did. I don't know. I can't remember.
I don't remember, honestly. That it really matters that much, the Chinese league.
But yeah, it's just been watching him come and have the effect on his team. And it's funny, because we talked to Eric Shoji right before they played Trentino back in the group stage of the Champions League, and just how he talked about how much this guy influences their team. And he's been a perfect fit for this team, and especially for a team like Zaxa that isn't used to a lot of turnover. Like all of these guys have been their guys. That's massive, and it's going to be pretty interesting to see what happens after this, if he stays at Zaxa or if he goes elsewhere, because he's had an absolutely massive impact, and I think he's kind of redeemed himself in a number of ways.
Yeah, his trip to Zenit Kazan was not particularly good. Once he left Poland to go kind of explore the waters, it didn't go super well for him. But now back at home, picking up where he left off. What, in your opinion, Everett, does Yashimski have to do to beat Zaxa in a 5-match series? Is there a path, and if so, what is it?
I think there is a path. First and foremost, they're going to need to serve exceptionally well. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They need to put Zaxa in a bad position. I think that's a no-brainer. And when you look at this roster, like they need to block well. The big caveat there being Toniutti, of course, and how they're going to be able to work around him. But Boyer needs to have a monster series, which I don't know if he can. That's one of the big question marks to me is, can Stéphane Boyer, like he has to be the best player in this series for Yashimski to have a chance.
Completely agree.
That to me is like, for now, there's no doubt that he needs to be good. Klevno, I think, needs to be better. I think Klevno has just been all right. Both of those players need to be very, very good. They need to be passing fantastic. But ultimately, Stéphane Boyer needs to be unstoppable. And they're going to need Yuri Glider. They need Yuri Glider in on this one.
It's like the fiery, like, fury of the devil in his eyes, and they're going to need his blocking presence too. I agree. I think there is a path too, because we saw Stéphane Boyer the first half of the season play the best volleyball of his career and be clearly the best opposite, if not the best player in the entire PlusLiga for the first half of the year. And that was bound to come back to earth at some point. But if he catches fire for 3 matches, it's not impossible that he can really put Zaxa in serious trouble. I could definitely see it. But with this 5-match series and with the Champions League final, just getting to see two teams that are so good, so well-rounded, and so smart. Like we talk about how smart Zaksa is and how mature their organization is, but Jastrzębski is really the same thing. That team has been there. Remember when Zaksa won their first Champions League 2 years ago, they didn't win the PlusLiga. It's because they got beat by Jastrzębski in the final. So this series is a classic. This has really been, it's hard to call it an underrated rivalry the last 2 years, but I think because we focus so much on the Italian league that this awesome PlusLiga battle has flown a little under the radar, and I'm excited. I want to spotlight it as much as we can the next couple of weeks.
I do think that one was a little different or a few years ago, because I do think that Zaksa may have won the Champions League before the PlusLiga finals.
Correct.
So I think that might have created maybe a bit of an emotional hangover, but I do think that ultimately the MVP of this series for JW, if they are to win, is going to be Ben Toniutti, and that's going to be by keeping Stéphane Boyer out of the clubs and out of the Rippers. If he's going to be able to do that for the entirety of the series, that's when we're going to see JSW have a little bit of a shot. But otherwise, if he's throwing those ones around, or I don't know, what is it, a $5 euro bill, then they may not have as good of a shot.
That is not where I thought that was going to go, but I'm definitely not going to tell you you're wrong. That's really funny.
There you go. I was going to say, you got to admit it's kind of warranted based on what we've learned.
Oh, we've learned a lot. We learned about their time in Ottawa with the French national team last summer. We heard some good stories from that. So
exactly.
Oh man,
exactly.
So match one of that series is tomorrow, Wednesday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. You can do a little double screen between that and the Malone's Scandicci game if you're really dedicated. That one's going to be good. So before we move on, a bunch of other league playoffs, championship series to talk about. Everett, what sweatshirt are you wearing over there?
Well, just our 9x9 merch. You can go head over to thatvolleyball.store, use the code SPICY to get 15% off. And yeah, look good like us. Maybe we'll get Rob in some of our merch sometime and out of that VLA gear.
Oh, hey, I like the VLA gear. You can plug your merch. I can plug mine. We've got a gigantic VLA tournament coming up next weekend, which we'll talk about on next week's show. But even as good as the VLA merch is, and it's pretty good, nothing compares to that 9x9 squared logo. It really is the best. So pick it up from thatvolleyball.store. A bunch of good colors too.
Yeah, great colors. We picked all of the colors, and of course, the next best thing in the Volleyball Source universe is our newest segment, Where's Daddy? It's Rob St. Clair's beautiful brainchild, and I can't lie, I absolutely love it. Basically, we're just throwing Daddy Stankovic in a clip, and you got to find him.
Yep. Maybe he already showed up and maybe he did not. We're not going to tell you. But if you find where Daddy Stankovic is hidden in this episode and you comment after the stream is over the timestamp of where he is, then you get a shout out on next week's show. So with that in mind, this is where Daddy Stankovic appeared on last week's show. This was a pretty good one. I tried to hide him a little more conspicuously this time. Daddy Stankovic is hidden in the crowd. He's there in the first row. You can see him there in between Lucarelli and Scanferla, sitting in the first row watching the Piacenza game. So that's where Daddy Stankovic was. And once again, our friend from the Discord, Bassi Lassie, found him immediately. It was at the beginning of last week's episode, so I was hoping I could slip it by some people, but he found it right away. So shout out to
Lassie, 2 for 3.
2 for 3,
baby.
2 for 3 in Where's Daddy history. So that's a pretty impressive record so far. Somebody else has got to find Daddy and post it in the comments faster than Bassi Lassie to try and get a chance. But yeah, Daddy Stankovic is somewhere. I'm not going to tell you where. Everett doesn't even know where he is.
No, I don't.
Which I love. It makes it even more fun.
Yeah, and the worst is that the software that we use sometimes goes really, really pixelated, so much so that I can't even see Rob's face when we're talking to him. So if you see me really squinting at the screen, it's because I'm looking for Daddy Stankovic.
Yeah, I look behind the scenes. It always ends up looking beautiful on YouTube, but sometimes on our sides, like when we're looking at each other and we're looking at the asset in the middle of the screen, it doesn't look as good. So Everett might have the biggest disadvantage in the Where's Daddy game.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong, especially since you don't tell me anything. But it's always the first thing when we talk about at the end of the show. One more thing before we continue on. Well, two more things. First and foremost, if you're not a member of the Volleyball Source Discord, I don't know what you're doing. Get your butt over there. It's basically the greatest thing that we have. The best and greatest volleyball community anywhere on the internet. I wonder how I can see how many people are in it.
It's well over 1,000.
Well over 1,000.
And growing by the day, and more people are like coming out of the woodwork to actually be active and contribute. And especially as all these playoff series are going on, like we've got so many channels for the different countries, the different leagues. The discussion is awesome. Like it's brought so much, even just as a fan, to my experiencing of watching all these games, is having this like pretty well educated community of people to talk to during the game. It's awesome. Can't recommend it enough.
But finally, guys, you let us down a little last week. We only had 36 likes on the video, down from over 90 the week before. So, you know what? I'm putting it on you guys. If you like this show, like the video. If you don't like this show, like the video. If you find Daddy, like this video.
That's right.
Just you know what?
That's a prerequisite. If you want to win the Where's Daddy contest, I'm gonna check the video to see if you have also thumbed up the video with your comment, and if not, you don't get the shout out.
Oh, there we go.
You don't get the shout out. So not only do you have to comment the timestamp for Where's Daddy, you also have to like the video, and I'll check. I will.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the likes, you know what? It's just important. Like, help us out here. Give us the likes, especially with the FIVB taking down our YouTube, our Instagram recently, which nothing back from them on that. Also love how they had to have done it like manually. They had to have gone through, because there's so many other channels that uses clips of VNL, World Championships, whatever, Olympics. But yeah, so this is one of the best ways to support us. Throw us a like, because every next person who likes it, it's just going to increase the algorithm by that much. The
algorithm matters,
and it's been massive the past few shows. 2 weeks ago, what we were at like 2,600, and last week was only 1,300. So we literally lost half of our audience from the week before to this week. So, and that's you're going to have some up and down. But let the like back up, please, and thank you guys. We would really appreciate it.
I think we put it out a couple shows ago that this is the 81 square meters of the best volleyball coverage on the internet, and every episode we do needs 81 likes. I think that's the target. That's the target. We are halfway there right now, and so we got work to do before the end of the show. But fortunately, we got some more stuff to talk about. Everett, ready to jump back in a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about the men's side in Turkey, or the women's side in Turkey. Now let's talk about the men's. Game 1 of the finals, going down to Halkbank. Are you surprised though, Rob, at all with the way that team has played all season?
No, but I was at least happy that we got a good match out of it. So this was earlier today. I stumbled upon a little bit, turned it on, watched basically the whole match, and the first 2 sets I was not impressed. Ziraat Bank is the other team playing in the finals, also from Ankara, so a crosstown series, which is cool. They got past Fenerbahce in the third game in the semifinals, but they laid 2 eggs. 2 terrible performances in the first 2 sets, not even close, 25-15, 25-16. But then you know that Walter Termat is not going to get put down on the club level for a while. He's playing against Namir, which I'm sure is a little extra motivation for him, having to sit behind him on the Dutch national team all the time. So Ziraat Bank took a set. Ziraat Bank was up 11-4 in the 4th set before Halkbank stormed all the way back. Ziraat Bank had a set point in reception at 24-23. Maika Ma'a ripped a clean ace to the zone 1 sideline, and then Osmani Wantarena hit 2 balls out of bounds in a row cross court, and Halkbank wins the match. So very spicy, very fun to watch, very chippy, like someone in the chat just put in. I mean, every single Halkbank match we saw in Champions League kind of went off the rails, and the same goes in the domestic league. This match was fun. The series is fun, and it was on YouTube for free. So no reason not to watch. See if Namir, Maika Ma'a, and Thomas Jeschke, who once again went above 50% efficiency in this game, just ridiculous. We'll see if they can hoist another piece of hardware. They won the Turkish Cup like a week ago, so why can't they do it again?
Remember when both Monterrey and Tomaszewski were coming from China, their teams, we were talking about who we think going to impact their team more? I think we know the answer to that now.
Yeah, we think we do. I think we do.
I think there is no doubt about it. Tomaszewski has been a revelation. To me, it's kind of the question of who's impacted their team more, Tomaszewski
Or Bartosz
Bednorz. I think Melissa Vargas was in that conversation now, but maybe not as of late with that fall of Fenerbahce, especially in the past few matches. But ultimately, I think you have to give it to Bednorz. But Ješki has been a revelation so far for Halkbank, and I cannot wait to see him in a Team USA jersey later on this year.
Boy, I hope so. I sure hope so. We need that man very, very badly. So, yeah, great for Tom Ješki. Game 2 in that series is, let's see, it is on the 4th, which is Thursday, and that's a best of 5 series, which is great. So, we get at least 2 more matches between Halkbank and Ziraat Bank. Yeah, so game 2. Oh well, look how many they have scheduled. That's weird. They've got a bunch of them scheduled. Maybe I was wrong. I think what's the 6th? Is that Saturday?
Yeah, that's Saturday.
Okay, game 2 is Saturday. Game 3 is Tuesday. So maybe if Halkbank sweeps the series, we can crown them on next week's show.
Yeah, Saturday at noon will be the Halkbank match.
Yep. And we'll put links in the Discord for the right YouTube channel. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I found it earlier today. I put it in the Turkey channel, so go check that, or we'll send it again on Saturday. It was free and it was not geo-blocked, which is amazing.
Awesome. Gotta love that. All right, from Turkey up to Germany, game number 1 of the Bundesliga finals went the way of the Berlin Recycling Volleys. Honestly, not that surprising given how much that they have dominated this season. 3-1 for the Recycling Volleys. Eric Sotola, 22 points. He was pretty good in this
aces. One. 7 aces, only 5 errors. That's insane.
Yeah, 11 aces as a team for Berlin as well. Of course, bolstered by Sotola's 7 there. Are we going to expect, especially when you look at the passing numbers here, 33% positive, 9 perfect for Friedrichshafen, 59 and 32 for Berlin.
Ouch. Yeah, that is certainly not good enough. Yeah, Friedrichshafen's got a couple moving parts at outside hitter. I know they started with this Tim Pater character, this German guy. Man, why am I blanking? Who is their other starting outside hitter through their Champions League run across from Luciano Vicentin? They had another. Oh yeah, Žiga Stern. They had the Slovenian guy. I don't know what's happened to him, but he's not on the roster anymore.
No, he's not. He's not even on the roster right now.
Yeah, maybe he got hurt. Not sure what's going on there. Andre Brown for Hafen is having amazing year. Great blocking the ball. He had five blocks by himself. But I mean, Berlin looks unstoppable. They have the best player in the league in Marek Sotola, and I think it's pretty fair to call him that at this point. 13 for 31 attacking, but yeah, the 7 aces is insane, and the angles that he can create. I like Berlin. I think they're going to win yet another German league title.
Game 2 going on Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern time.
Best broadcast in the game, as we like to say.
Yeah, absolute content. Got to check them out over on Twitch. Of course, it's not geo-blocked. It's free. If I knew German, I knew it would be awesome because they always have 2 commentators on the game. They're always talking some good balls. So that one is definitely going to be one to check out as well on Thursday at the same time as Game 2 as the Italian finals. And Rob, let's just jump over to the women's side real quick. I know we don't have an asset for this, but I accidentally opened it up and saw that Game 1 of the women's finals went down earlier today, actually, with Stuttgart beating Potsdam 3-1 in Game 1 of the women's final. Crystal Rivers, 22 points. Simone Lee, 23 points for Stuttgart in match number 1. I don't think there's any Americans on
Potsdam. No, I don't think so. Because we saw Potsdam steal that match from VakifBank in Champions League pools out of nowhere. And
correct.
But like Stuttgart has been the more like sustainably good team this year, at least in terms of European success. I'm not going to claim that I've watched very much German women's volleyball this year, but yeah, this is a best of 5 series, so there's at least 2 more games.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, do shit out. Backup setter for Potsdam is a Canadian national team backup setter, Kim Rabitaille, out of Quebec, who started the year in Romania and now plays for Potsdam. I'm just pulling up their volley box right now, real quick, to see if there's any Americans on this Potsdam team. Of course, being in the finals, both teams have qualified for the Champions League next season. Both teams got some pretty good upsets. So that's pretty awesome. And no Americans on this Potsdam team.
All right, go Stuttgart it is then. I like Crystal Rivers. I like Simone Lee. So you want to move on to France, the French league. Those finals are set. I know we were roasting their format in the LNV last week with it going from best of 5 to best of 3 to like Champions League home and away style, which I still don't understand. But Chaumont, huge respect for coming back, dropping the first match in the best of 3 semifinal series, but then winning 6 sets in a row over Nantes to take on Tours in the final. So that's really cool. Match 1 is Saturday, I think. Yep. Match 1 is this Saturday. Match 2 is the Saturday after that, the 13th. And then there's golden set potential there because of how dumb that format is. But it is down to 2 teams in the LNV, and there are a couple Americans on Chaumont that I'm rooting for.
Yeah, absolutely. Match number 1 is going to be on Saturday. You just said that, right?
Yeah, this Saturday and then the following Saturday for match 2.
All right. Make sure to check out the weird LNV, and just a bit of a with the 2-match series. They're not doing it set by set. If
Right,
you
it's just
win
match and
3-0 and then lose 3-2, and you're still going to a golden set, which I actually kind of like.
Yeah, I think that in a league's playoffs, that sets shouldn't matter. I agree with that.
Yeah.
But at that point, just like
Absolutely.
play an odd number of matches and decide it that way. Like otherwise, there isn't really any home court advantage for Tours, who should be the 1 seed. Well, they are the 1 seed. They should get more of a home court advantage for that. So just play the 3rd match. Why not?
Yeah, I would tend to agree. It's a little bit more revenue for the team, the gate and whatnot. And but yeah, that one is definitely a little bit interesting over there in France.
Yep. All right, is that it for Europe? I think we got a little bit of North American stuff to talk about the rest of the show. Is that right?
Yeah, that is right. As the NCAA tournament is in full swing. Actually, it is literally going on right now.
Right now.
Right as we speak. I'm going to pull that up as we break it down.
Right this second, Penn State leads Ohio State 1-0. Penn State took the first 25-22. It is early in the second set in that match right now. So as we all expected, Ohio State in the earliest playing game beat King out of the Conference Carolinas. They beat him on, I think, Sunday to advance to take on Penn State. Rematch there of when Ohio State beat Penn State to knock them off the number 1 ranking. So that one's live literally right now. It's on ESPN Plus, which is a bummer. I thought these were going to be free on NCAA.com. They are not. You got to pick up a subscription to watch those. But we also had one earlier today between Grand Canyon and Long Beach State, with Long Beach winning 3-1 there as well. And I watched that whole game. It was pretty high level.
I mean, no surprise there that Long Beach picks up that win. But GCU, I feel like, has been putting together quite a decent season. So big ups for the team from Arizona.
Yep.
Arizona volleyball starting to pick it up. I did see that Out of System in one of their podcasts, they were talking about the identities of each volleyball state. And Arizona was basically thinking they're as good as California, but they aren't even close. I like that.
That is true. That's also a very California take to like try and relegate them to the little brother role. But what I noticed from this, like, and I watched this earlier, there was a little bit of activity in the Discord about it. Grand Canyon is good. Grand Canyon's wings are better than Long Beach State's wings. I will go out on a limb and say that. We saw the Shapanis kid, like the Cypressian kid for Long Beach, start on the bench. So he didn't even play the first set. Then he came on and looked pretty healthy to me. So I'm not exactly sure why he sat, but when he came off, that made a big difference. Grand Canyon just kind of lacked that experience. And this was their first NCAA tournament berth ever. So shout outs to Coach Matt Worley of Grand Canyon for getting them here. That was awesome. But you could definitely tell at the end of the 4th set where Grand Canyon showed that inexperience and kind of surrendering to the bright lights of the moment just a little bit. And Long Beach did a really good job putting the right amounts of pressure on, both from the service line and blocking. I thought Long Beach blocked the ball extremely well. Simon Torwi, their middle, was the most impressive player to me on either side. So he's going to be a factor, but I do still think the Grand Canyon's wings were better than Long Beach's. It just wasn't quite enough.
Okay, I could kind of see that. I obviously haven't seen Grand Canyon play, but I have seen a Long Beach play earlier this season. I do agree, Simon Torwi, that dude is a beast. He's an absolute beast. And I do hope, especially in the Discord, people start giving Aiden Knipe a little bit more respect.
I think Knipe was the better setter today for sure.
I think he may not look the part, right? I think as I said after the Long Beach versus McMaster game, he kind of looks like a guy whose legs were photoshopped onto his body. Like they just don't really fit each other, but he runs a good offense. He's got pretty good hands, and you can tell he just has a good vibe with his team. So watching him play, I know he beat McMaster and I wasn't really that happy about it, but he was a guy that I wanted to win just by watching him play. So I think I would hope that our Discord gives him a little bit more respect in those ways.
Well, I was hoping that you were going to give us some Long Beach State takes because you saw them in person this year and I did not. And I like that point about Aiden Knipe because he was definitely the better setter tonight. Now, the question is that Long Beach now is going to go play UCLA on Thursday. And that's going to be very, very interesting. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the winner of Ohio State and Penn State who are playing right now. Ohio State, as of this second, is up 10-7 in the second set. Winner of that's going to go on to play Hawaii, and that's going to be gnarly as well. So semis on Thursday, championship match on Saturday. Get in the Discord. We will try and get you internationally friendly links to watch these games, but I'm not super optimistic about finding good places. If you're in the States, just pay $10 and get ESPN Plus and then cancel it after this week is over. It's worth it to watch these games. Commentary, not as bad as usual. It's not good, but it's not as bad as usual. They've got George Mason head coach Jay Hossack as the color guy, and he's really good. And then you get Sunderland and Barnett on probably ESPN2 on Saturday night for the finals. So,
you're just gonna sewer Rob Aspero like that, eh? Not even
Rob Aspero is not a play-by-play guy. He is not a play-by-play guy. He is a live MC, and he has a lane doing that. I do not think that he has a lane doing play-by-play. It's kind of painful.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I haven't been able to watch it because I'm up here in Canada. But yeah, just going back to the Long Beach outsides, though, they had Godbold Oliver and Siapanis out there. I don't know the Grand Canyon outsides, but I do think that like there's in my eyes, like Godbold is a Lytle version of Kyle Ensing. And Aiden Knipe makes him look real good.
I kind of agree with that. I'm not super impressed with Godbold, and I think that's a good segue. We got to talk about the All-American list here for a second. And for some reason, Godbold was kind of tearing Grand Canyon apart for like the first two sets. Because while Chapanis was on the bench, and I don't think Olivier is particularly good, and I think the Discord is in agreement with that, Godbold, was getting the most of their points for about a set and a half there. And that was surprising to me that Grand Canyon couldn't more convincingly shut him down. But Grand Canyon's wings are good. This Camden Gianni kid switched from the left to the right midway through his career. He's really physical. Then Christian Janke and Jackson Hickman are their two left sides. And all three of those guys would have started on Long Beach. I'm convinced of that. They were good, but their team wasn't quite good enough. Mason Briggs was clearly a better libero. Knipe was a better setter. And both Long Beach middles, Holdaway and Torwi, were better than the Grand Canyon guys.
All right, fair enough. I'm trying to squint through the 140p screen that I've got right now.
I put the link in the show notes. I think that's a little bit better.
I see
that.
We
can talk about the All-American list. So I'll read them down and then we can talk about them. The first team All-Americans for this NCAA season, there are 12 of them, which I don't really understand. You got Cole Bogner, setter from Penn State, Mason Briggs, libero from Long Beach, Ethan Champlin, outside from UCLA, Ito David, opposite from UCLA, Toby Ezionu, middle blocker, Penn State, Hilir Hano, outside hitter, UC Irvine, Merrick McHenry, middle blocker, UCLA, Demetrios Mouchlias, opposite Hawaii, Jacob Pastor, outside hitter, Ohio State, Andrew Owen, setter, UCLA, Jakob Tellis, setter, Hawaii, and Guillermo Vos, middle blocker, Hawaii. One, why are there 12 first-team All-Americans? And two, I'm a little concerned that of those 12, only 6 of them are American-born players.
But that's standard though. That's
Yeah, it is.
like that's absolutely normal for the NCAA, right?
It is pretty normal.
Like, and the NCAA volleyball is one of the best breeding grounds for everyone outside of America.
And because America can't figure it out, we're just getting those scholarship spots taken up by foreign kids who go and support other national teams. It's really awesome. Good job, USA Volleyball. You're really doing a great job.
Hey, Nikolov, man. I mean, Nikolov last year in the NCAA, this year he was in the finals. Gabby Garcia, same thing. I mean, at least you guys stole him from Puerto Rico.
We were able to steal
everything else in Puerto Rico.
I mean, like Jakob Tella has a case for National Player of the Year, which will get named later this week. He's Danish. I mean, Vos is Brazilian. Muklius is Greek. David is Israeli. Heno is French. Like there's dudes from literally all over the world taking up first team All-American spots. I can't say I'm particularly happy about it, but all those guys are deserving. Like those are the best players in their position in the country. It's pretty clear to me. It's also interesting that we've got 3 setters on this list. Should there really be 3 first team All-American setters? I'm not super convinced by that.
Yeah, I don't even know. And did we get to see, was Cole Bogner, was he playing for?
Yeah, for Penn State.
He was there? Okay.
Yeah, and he's really good. He's good, but so is Jakob Tella, and then so is Andrew Rowan, who's might be the story of the NCAA this year. Like a true freshman coming in, starting midway through the year after Miles Partain, who was the conference player of the year last year for UCLA, left the team halfway through the year to focus on the beach. And so they bring in a freshman, this like 6'6" kid, and he's a first team All-American setter, and it's completely well deserved. Like he's been incredible. It's weird that like you lose the player of the year and you arguably get better halfway through the year. So Speraw, by the way, at National Coach of the Year, I think that's honestly pretty well deserved with what happened with his setter position. It's been pretty cool story this year.
Is this the year that Speraw breaks the curse? Because remember, he did it with UCI, but he has yet to be able to do it with UCLA. They're the number 1 seed. They have to play they have to play Long Beach in the semifinals, and then they have to play the winner of Penn State versus Ohio State, and then whoever wins that versus Hawaii, potentially if they beat Long Beach. Can UCLA get the job done?
Oh man, UCLA will beat Long Beach State. At least that's my opinion. I strongly think they will. I think Long Beach is really, really beatable. The only matchup advantage I think that Long Beach might have there is in the middle, but I like Rowan at setter. I really like David at opposite, this Israeli kid, and then I like Alex Knight, Ethan Champlin on the left. I think they're all 3 of those UCLA wings can easily win a championship. I'm not sure if UCLA were to blow it to somebody. I don't know what reason it would be other than getting beat by like if Hawaii gets nuclear hot again and tries to win 3 in a row. That wouldn't surprise me, but this could easily be the year that Speraw finally gets it done for UCLA. It's the best chance. It's the best chance he's probably ever had. Not only is his team good, but there isn't another like incredibly dominant team across the bracket from him anywhere.
All right. Well, we will see. We will update you guys that for you guys on next week's show. As Rob said, use ESPN Plus to get it to check that out.
That's tonight. Tonight and Thursday is ESPN Plus. I think Saturday will be like on more like a TV network in the States, and that'll be. I don't even know how to approach that for you international viewers, but we'll do whatever we can in the Discord to help you watch these games. So head over there. Yeah,
absolutely.
Last but not least, want to shout out one more thing related to the NCAA. That's Division 3. We talked about it on last week's show. That Stevenson was the host of the tournament. The team that won the national championship is Stevens, and that's confusing. But
sorry, that is confusing.
Yeah, Stevens Institute of Technology. The Ducks is their mascot, which I kind of like. So shout out to Stevens out of New Jersey. They won the national championship in Division 3 over the weekend. They beat North Central, which is from the Chicago Burbs. They beat them 3-1 in the final, so good for Stevens. They've got a bunch of alums playing at the VLA level. There's a guy from my high school that played at Stevens back in the day, so that's a good program. Congratulations to them. They won the Division 3 national title.
Now what we need to see is Stevens play against Camosun for the
NCAA.
Yeah, the tier 2 North American championships. That's exactly what I want to see. It's never going to happen, but it's what I want to see.
It would be cool. By the way, Ohio State and Penn State are tied up at 16 in the second set right now. So as soon as we're done here, I'm going to jump over and watch that match.
You should screen share it and stream it in the Discord for us, and you can commentate.
We already got one Volleyball Source Network taken down. We don't need a second one.
Okay, I guess you're right. I guess you're right. All right, guys, thank you very much for tuning in this week's episode of the 9x9. Remember, first and foremost, where was Daddy? Where was Daddy? I didn't see him this episode.
Did you not? Okay, you're really gonna like this one. You're really
okay, good. Like based off what I told you last week. All right.
Yeah.
Second of all, make sure to go look at this video. Give us that thumbs up, that sweet thumbs up, baby. That's how you're gonna support us. Let's see, we're at 25 likes right now. That's not too bad. So
I want 81. Sure. I want 81 likes on this video. Make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And after that, join us over on the Volleyball Source Discord.
Yep. See you next Tuesday. Lots of good volleyball to watch between now and then. Same time, same place next week.
Peace.